All right. So as we begin each show, it is our weekly breakout. Again, it's a fantasy concept that relates to the Bible, relates to life. And so we begin from the fantasy perspective. And as we look at our rosters, even oftentimes, after the draft, it's our goal to have a well-balanced team, a well-balanced roster, right? We want to make sure that we've got enough quarterbacks and running backs and tight ends and receivers and the right combination of all of that. But what ultimately ends up happening all too often is that we look across our team and we realize my running backs are weaker than my wide receivers. And so we can ask the question, what is our pain point? What is our team's weakness? Usually, especially this time of year, we're heading into week 7, there is some position that is our weak point. It's our weakest spot. And so as much as we wished we, didn't have any weaknesses, right? We were rolling, we're rocking and rolling. Now, every once in a while you get that undefeated team, but for the most part, we're all dealing with something. And also with all the injuries, this is causing us to be weak at certain positions too. I mean, I came into the season feeling great at the running back spot. Well, that was my strongest. Well, now it's my weakest because they're injured. Nick Chubb's out. And so then, you went into the draft and you go, I'm going to punt on quarterback. Wait till the later round to get him. Well, if you thought that Daniel Jones was going to be that guy and have that breakout season and you punted and waited for him, well, that quarterback position is weak for you. And if you thought, maybe Russell Wilson will have that bounce back year. He's given you a couple good games, but if you're relying on him every week, you're probably in trouble as well. And so what is that position for you? Where are you the weakest? And what do we do about it? Now, hopefully, as we look at our team and we realize, okay, I'm weak at this position, it is causing us and forcing us and encouraging us to work the waiver wire, to make a trade, to identify the right trade partner to where, okay, they're strong at that position, so I need to tap into their strength in order to help my weakness on my roster, which is the tight end position or the running back position. Or you realize, okay, I'm weak at tight end. I need to be aggressive on the waiver wire and go grab a good tight end or grab a couple, kind of roll the dice on a couple tight ends so that I can be stronger in that area at that position on my roster. And so the other thing we have to factor in, whether it's a weak position, some of us just have weak teams. You just across the board, it's a weak team. And so you're having to really get some help. You need to look at some different experts. You may have to make some drastic changes. You need help. You need to acknowledge that. And then some of us have just made bad managing decisions. You're just a weak manager, or you've made weak moves. And so your team is weak because of the managing side. And so either way, whatever it may be of where you're weak or why you're weak, we have a choice to make as fantasy managers. We can either complain, blame, give up, or even deny that we're weak at certain spots, or we can acknowledge how weak we truly are and admit that we need help to strengthen our team. And we go find that strength. We find that help, waiver wire, trade, expert advice, something. And so we talk about that in order to really address what's going on in our own lives. And the truth is, we all encounter weakness in our own lives, hardships that challenge us physically, spiritually, emotionally, or with temptation. We're weak in certain areas when it comes to sin, and temptation gets us in certain areas if we're not careful and equipped. And so, what is that weakness for you? When you think about weakness, what in your life are you facing right now? Roster positions, quote unquote, that we're just having a tough time with. And again, we have a choice to make. We can either complain, blame, give up because of the weaknesses in our life, or we can acknowledge how weak we truly are and admit that we need help and strength. And so are we willing to acknowledge it? Or are we just not going to do anything about it and just try to muster up enough in our weakness to keep going and continue to sort of, fail and flounder? And so what my encouragement for us today is to truly humble ourselves and be honest and acknowledge that we can't move forward in our own strength and that we need to turn to God for his strength. Because Isaiah 40:29 tells us he gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. And so we have to have open hands and an open heart where we can embrace our weaknesses because it actually allows us to experience his strength, his grace, his power. And sometimes he will remove our pain points in life. But sometimes he has a purpose that is accomplished by allowing our weaknesses to remain. So the weakness is there. And so we have a choice to try to just get through the weakness on our own or rely on his strength, rely on his power, rely on his grace as he works in us and through us in the weakness, in the hardship, in the challenge, so that his will is accomplished, so that what he wants to do in us is accomplished. And so we go to scripture, and in 2 Corinthians 12, the Apostle Paul shows us what this looks like. And really, he gives us a great way to respond to weaknesses. So he was given what was referred to as a thorn in his flesh. And we don't know exactly what that was or what that meant fully, but we do know that it was there to keep him humble, and he begged the Lord to take it away. But God told him each time he asked, God said, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. And so then Paul writes in verse 9, so now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me. That's why I take pleasure in my weaknesses and in the insults, hardships, persecutions, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong. And so the Living Bible translates it this way. Each time God said, no, but I am with you. That is all you need. My power shows up best in weak people. And so here's the encouragement today. We're all weak. We're all broken. Let's acknowledge it. We have weaknesses in our lives. We can't deny it. We're weak at the running back position, some of us. Some of us are weak at the wide receiver position. And translate that to whatever that looks like in your circumstances, in your character, in your, temptations, physically, emotionally, spiritually, wherever you're weak. We're weak. And so what are we going to do with it? What we can be encouraged by today is that our weaknesses remind us that we need Jesus. And so let's allow that to lead us to trusting him and realize just how limited we are on our own. And our weaknesses give him an opportunity to do incredible work in us and through us as his strength, his glory, his goodness shines through. Our weakness gives him an opportunity to show up, to show off, to shine, all of that. So we don't have to run from our weaknesses. We embrace our weaknesses. We go, God, take my weaknesses, show up. I need your strength. Help me to endure. And so it's true that when we are weak, we end up being even stronger because we're totally dependent on him. So we tap into unlimited strength. And so we become strong because of him, because of his strength. And so when we're weak, we're strong. When we rely on him, trust him, and depend on him for his strength. So let's celebrate that today. Let's celebrate our weaknesses today and not just, wallow in them, but give them to the Lord, open-handed, open-hearted. All right, God, I need you. I need your strength.